so bro is gonna call me. All right. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you guys?
We're good. We're good.
Cool. Well, welcome to the Sir Squeebles stream.
Thank you.
No,
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you guys for taking the time to do it. So, real quick, kind of my thoughts on this, because obviously I'm wanting to take as many questions from my stream as I can. I'm really just going to chime in, I guess, when there's not questions from the stream with my own, to try and keep it rolling. But I'm afraid if we waited to the end to open it up to people on the stream, then, we'd probably have a bunch of empty space there. So I guess basically, do you guys just want to do like a really short intro of yourselves so people know who you are?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, sounds good. Why don't you go first, bro?
All right. So yeah, I'm CCP Pro. I've been working for CCP for about just under 2 years now. Started off as a game master, and then just kind of transitioned over into the tournament, dealing with the tournament and producing our live broadcasts and working with the community department on supporting the streaming scene and developing the esports scene and stuff like that. And that's just what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and I'm CCP Fozzie. I've been working for CCP now for, 9 months, 8 and a bit months. I'm a game designer, and a lot of what I've been working on recently has been ship balancing. Did a lot of that for Retribution and 1.1. I've also done a lot of work on factional warfare, and I've got some really cool stuff coming up that we haven't announced yet for the summer, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Cool. And I know I have some people here who are here for the event and don't necessarily know who I am or what my stream is, but I'm Sir Squeebles. I'm the streamer. I'm a small gang PvPer, mostly low sec, and I hate ECM, so that'll be my introduction. So I think the first thing I wanted to ask about was, obviously Retribution came out, and one of the biggest changes to that, outside of the aggression mechanics, was it was sort of the start of the ship rebalancing, which I think, at least for myself, I'm still doing a lot of figuring out on the ship rebalancing. And one of the questions I really wanted to ask, obviously more directed toward Fozzie, was, when you were thinking about rebalancing ships, was the main objective sort of to balance ships with respect to other ship classes, like to make cruisers more viable against battle cruisers, or was it to sort of equal them out within their own categories so that the Drake and the Hurricane and whatnot were not overpowered compared to other battle cruisers?
Those are definitely both goals. What I'll say is that the key thing that we were really trying to do, especially going through the Tech 1 ships, because a lot of these had this problem a lot more than the Tech 2 or faction ships, is to ensure that every ship had at least one viable role that it could play. And then beyond that, we know that you players are going to come up with really cool tricks to use them for. People are going to use them in ways that were never intended, and that's awesome, and that's always the way things work, and even that's one of the greatest things about it. But we wanted, we wanted to make sure that everything had at least one niche that it could fit into. And for a lot of the ships that fell in the lower tiers, that was the big change, is giving them something that they can actually do without having them to just be a ship that you only rely on people underestimating you because it's a ship that everyone knows sucks. When it comes to between classes, we did also want to make sure that each class was viable enough on its own, and part of that was buffing up the Tech 1 cruisers a bit. Part of that was slightly decreasing the overall, the top power level of the battle cruisers. And we'll be doing more of those kind of adjustments as we go forward.
Cool. Yeah, obviously I figured there had to be some balance between the two, but I was always curious because you would see, Drake Doctrines and you'd see Whelp Canes and things like that, and there wasn't a whole lot of love for some of the other battle cruisers. So I think with the rebalance, the Prophecy is one of the best success stories out of that. I've seen a lot of really good stuff, and I personally love
the
that
Prophecy.
Ship, so.
The metrics about what's going on with these ships, one of my favorite ones to be watching every day now, since after we make our changes, is we can track how much damage was done by different ships in PvP. over the course of the day. And the ship that's seen the biggest jump after 1.1, unsurprisingly, is the Prophecy. It's been the biggest success story so far when it comes to recovering some of these ships, because I'm sure you guys know the battlecruiser class is one that really just had the two big ships at the top, and well, other than like the combat battlecruisers, other than the tier 3s, it was just the Drake and the Hurricane, and then everything else was barely used, way down below.
Right.
I put a graph out just of how many people were sitting in these ships in my most recent dev blog. There was just such a huge gap that for every one Drake there was like a dozen or more of these lesser used ships like the Ferox, like the Prophecy, and trying to actually narrow that gap was one of the goals.
Gotcha. And I guess to kind of bridge the gap, and this one obviously is for both of you, but bro, I see you on a lot of streams. I think a lot of people here who watch streams have seen you around. At first, I seriously was skeptical. I was like, wait, there's no way this is really a CCP dev just hanging out on streams. And I'm sure you get that all the time. But with what you were saying, Fozzie, about people coming up with unconventional fits, that's one of the coolest parts, I think, about the rebalance, is that you've seen all these new fits. And I just wonder, bro, especially because you spend so much time watching people like me and the other streamers kind of throw together these wonky fits. Typically, like, how much do you guys budget? I mean, how much wiggle room do you predict when you're doing these rebalances for after the fact? You know, somebody comes up with a fit that's just really kind of out of proportion, or is that something that you don't really expect to see very often?
Well, to be honest, like when it comes to rebalancing, like and stuff that deals with rebalancing in EVE, it's not really my forte, since I'm not a robot like Fozzie here. I don't have the slot layout of every single ship in the game stored in my memory. But it's definitely funny to, like, I've seen a huge jump in like different fits before the rebalancing and after the rebalancing. So like watching the streams, I was finally coming to terms with these standard fits before everything got changed, and then Fozzie over there went and changed all the ships, and now I am having to learn all the fits again, and I just feel like I just started this game over.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel the same.
Which is fun because like doing innovative stuff and watching people do like weird fittings and innovative fittings is the fun part about EVE, for me at least.
Agreed.
Yeah, one of the things that I enjoyed the most before I came to CCP was experimenting with fittings and with fleet comps especially. And I was mostly out in 0-0 in a couple of years before I came to CCP, and experimenting with what you can do with groups of ships working together was always something I really enjoyed. And so for both people working on small gang, large gang, solo fits, when we really shake things up like this, it gives them the opportunity for the best fit designers to rise to the top and get that advantage again.
Gotcha. I'm just going to pull a couple questions now from the Reddit thread, and one of the questions is near and dear to my heart. But somebody was asking, and I'm not certain. Like, I know you guys will know more about this than the layman, but if this isn't your all's area, fair enough. But they said, is there anything in the works for changing ECM?
Yeah, that's something for you, Fozzie, to...
What I'll say is that ECM is not in a place that we're fully happy with by any means. There's a lot of issues with it. If I was to go back in time to when it was originally put into the game, of course, with hindsight, we would never do something like that.
Right.
Have a chance-based mechanic for it, which actually wasn't the original ECM design. The original ECM wasn't chance-based, but it was still even worse than this. For anyone who was around way back in the days, actually before I started playing, but the old ECM used to work with, you had an amount of ECM power on each module, and the ship had a sensor strength, and if you put enough ECM modules on it to go over the sensor strength, it would be perma-jammed forever.
Gotcha.
And it was just like hard, and that was terrible too. So then the chance-based was really kind of a fix for that that's just been in the game all this time since. So yes, we do, there's a lot we're not happy with. with it. I can't say when the next changes are going to take place. I know that our newest game designer is going to be arriving very soon. The game designer formerly known as Kill 2 is very passionate about this issue as well. I took a stab at least trying to make the situation better by introducing a couple sensor compensation skills in Retribution.
Right.
As sort of this is something that at least puts us into a place where you have more agency and you can do something to mitigate the danger a little bit, and this beyond the tools that you already have available. So there's definitely more stuff we want to do. I can't say what exactly it is going to be yet, or when it's going to be.
I think people will just be glad to hear that there's a consensus that it's a bit out of proportion. I know, I figured that eventually it would sort of come into the limelight, but with all the ship rebalancing, it's obviously something that's going to take some time.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where the chance-based mechanic means that people using if you're using ECM, it always feels like your jams miss right when you need them to hit, and then you die. And if you're against ECM ships or ECM drones, it always seems like they get the jam on you in the worst moment.
Right.
And so it ends up seeming crappy for everyone.
Right. All right, I'll take another one from the threads here. This one also specifically directed toward you, Fozzie. They asked, what considerations, if any, do you make with regards to like solo PvP when rebalancing?
It's definitely something we try to keep in mind. It's something that it's one of those kind of weird situations where since I came to CCP, my options for corps is a lot more limited than it used to be. So actually, I've been spending more time soloing than I did before. I was in CCP when I used to almost always fly in groups, and now I fly and I do some small gang flying, but I also do quite a bit of soloing. And I know, and we've got other people at the company that solo too. I know Bro has been doing some solo piloting as well. And it's one of those things where we always are trying to keep in mind solo play. It's actually one of the easiest ones to test, which is nice. We can do our own test server fights in solo situations quite easily, while it's a lot harder to actually run a test of 50 versus 50, because then you need 100 people together, and that gets really hard. But yes, it's something we definitely consider and try to keep in mind when we're rebalancing ships. We want to make sure that ships have good roles in both solo and in groups.
Right. And I guess on that note, out of personal interest, do you guys have a ship right now that you're really enjoying doing solo PvP in?
I'm trying to think of. We have to be very careful not to let anyone know who we are. So it's not
right.
that like the ship I'm flying a lot now is so rare that it would give it away per se. But if someone already was like suspicious,
fair enough. Fair enough.
I'll say I've been flying. Like many people, I've been flying a lot of Tech 1 frigates, destroyers, and Tech 1 cruisers. Nice cheap stuff.
Yeah, I've been flying some cruisers and losing them regularly, being terrible at this game and all.
I know the feeling.
You always make it look like kind of easy. You're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna burn away in this direction from the gate, and I'm gonna do this, and it all makes like logical sense. And then I sit down and go into the game, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna jump into this. I'm gonna do some fancy stuff, and I'm gonna kill someone, and then I just end up dying.
No, it's all right. I just quickly delete all the recorded videos where I don't do well. People somehow think I'm doing all right. So. Another question about E-War. I'm just going to go ahead and... These are all questions from the same person, actually, so I'll finish theirs off. I know there was a discussion a while back about the imbalance of E-War being used against missile boats. I mean, tracking disruptors, really. And there was some speculation, I don't know if it was on CCP's behalf or somebody else just started something on the forum, but about tracking disruptors sort of having some effect on missile boats. Is that still a thing, or is there any plans to that effect?
So to explain where this all came from, actually, originally it's something that even before I came to CCP, CCP's been playing with. It showed up on the test servers early last summer, or like late spring, I guess, without any explanation, that disappeared again, and it turns out it was just basically some experiments being run that they didn't feel they got into a place they were happy with, so they dropped it for now. In Retribution, I tried to resurrect it, or began the process of resurrecting the idea of having both tracking disruptors affecting missiles, and whether that would be a different script or a different module that gets the same kind of bonuses as tracking disruptors from the same ships. That was undecided at the time. And then also having tracking mods affect missiles. so you get more range from putting a tracking computer on your Drake, for instance. With the idea being to give missile pilots more options for fitting and giving E-war pilots more options for countering missiles. And what we determined was, though, that we were making so many changes to missiles for Retribution that we didn't want to put so much onto that patch that it would be very hard to figure out what had caused what outcome. So we wanted to let the changes to missiles in Retribution, especially to heavy missiles, but also to Tech 2 missiles of all kinds, to guided missile precision affecting the former unguided missiles, all of these big changes to missiles, we wanted to let those settle, and then we're going to come back and look at the possibility of making tracking disruptors and tracking mods affect missiles again. So it's definitely something that's still on the radar. I don't have an ETA for it specifically, but it's something that when the time is right, we're going to take another close look at it.
Gotcha. So is it safe to assume right now sort of the main objective with development is to sort of push forward with the ship rebalancing and everything else is going to be mainly on hold? Is that the plan, or is that undecided?
Depends on what you mean by everything else. You mean, like, so in like everything else as a whole for design, then definitely not. We're not stopping by any means. Like in Retribution, it wasn't just the ship balancing. We also had crime watch changes. We had bounty hunting.
Right.
There was a whole bunch of stuff that came along with it. In 1.1, we introduced the new dueling system, and our summer expansion is going to have a bunch of changes, and ship balancing will just be one part of that.
Gotcha. Let's see. Somebody did have a question about drones. I've not heard this point before, but I don't know if it's something that you guys have heard of, but somebody was asking about with sort of the, I don't know, the rise or rebirth of drone boats and the increase of bandwidth on some of the new battle cruisers. They mentioned drones, obviously DPS drones, the damage is delayed when they're traveling to and from, and so they said, is there any intent on your all's part to either make them quicker or somehow reduce the effect of delayed drone damage?
There's a couple of options there. There's a lot of things we're not happy with drones. The interface is pretty terrible. They still get shot too much by NPCs, although it's a lot better than it was. We put a fix in right after Retribution that made a big help to that. There's a bunch of things that we still need to work on in that regard. And one of them is trying to smooth out making drone damage over medium and long range a bit better. As for increasing the speed, it's definitely an option, especially for heavy and medium drones. For light drones, we've reached a point where hilarious things happen when you increase their speed any further. Back when I was originally testing the Tristan for Retribution, my original idea for it, instead of the tracking bonus to guns, was I was going to put a drone micro warp drive speed bonus on them, similar to what we ended up putting onto the destroyers. And I originally tried it as like a 20% bonus, and hilarious things happened. The drones would, because they'd be moving so fast, the server wouldn't be able to keep up with how fast they're moving. Our server runs, for anyone who doesn't know, on one hertz essentially when it comes for the combat simulation. It's 1 second ticks. So everything that happens in the game happens on a 1 second tick. That's the only way at the moment we can keep everything, our servers from melting down when we have so many people fighting. But side effect of that is, if your drone is going so fast that in that period of 1 second, it goes from way outside of range but approaching a target to way outside of range overshooting a target, it'll just bounce back and forth, continuously overshooting targets and never actually slowing down and trying to shoot them. So there's definitely limits of what we can do with warriors. We can't really get them going any faster. But at the moment, technology may improve in that regard. But with the larger drones, yes, there's some room to speed them up.
Gotcha. Another question about the ship rebalancing is someone asked, now that the Tornado is in the game and it's sort of made its rounds and been tested and everybody knows what it can do, has it sort of diminished the role of the Tempest because it's more effective as a sniper ship?
I think the Tier 3s as a whole have taken a lot of the sniper role away from other ships, but I think there's still room for battleships to be strong. And the sniper battleship idea was dead in the current meta before the Tier 3s ever showed up. It was killed by high-speed probing rather than anything else. And so the Tempest was already not really being used as a sniper ship. You had the Maelstrom kind of taking its role for Alpha, and the Tempest, I think, when we get it into a place where we're really happy with it, it's going to be as a ship that takes advantage of the high speed for a battleship, that takes advantage of having the extra high slots for newts, for utility, of the flexibility of autocannons. In a lot of the ways people do use it now for that kind of skirmish role, that's going to be when it's its best. And there's a guy in the stream chat here talking about Sniper Tempest, question mark. If the Sniper Tempest used to be a mainstay of EVE,
right,
years ago though, not so much in the past couple of years. Like we're talking like 06, 05. Sniper Tempests were amazing.
Gotcha. Some of these I feel obligated because they've posted, but I agree with you. I honestly haven't seen the Tempest in a sniping role for quite some time. I didn't know if that was a
and
thing
like
I was
Nolio
just
was
missing.
saying, like Nolio was saying in stream chat, Hero Cat Tempests are spectacular. They're one of the greatest ways of killing super caps. I was involved in the first ever super cap kill or destruction of a super cap under a Sino jammer, and it was the awesomeness of Tempest that managed to do it. Double newt, autocannon, hail Tempest, rock. Actually, so do Ravens now. Ravens kick ass for that.
Cool. All right, so we'll take a break. I know people are wanting to ask a lot of rebalancing questions, but I'm also really interested in the streaming side of things, which is where Bro comes in.
I'm going to take this chance to just take a step away from the computer quickly. Be right back.
All right. Obviously, I can't have you guys like divulge anything about future plans, but I've seen a lot of support come out for streams that hasn't been there in the past. I'm not really sure for all the reasons, but I think everybody's happy to see more streams available. And I guess I would just ask, you from your side being a CCP dev, like, what do you see with the streaming community that's good, and sort of, is there anything that you can tell us about how CCP feels about streams or any plans, anything like that?
Well, I think streaming is really beneficial for everyone involved. It's beneficial for us because we can keep ourselves up to date and current with what's happening in the game by watching streams, and it's really accessible for like I get a lot of feedback on the changes that we make from watching streams. Like I see like, oh hey, the players are really using this feature a lot, and then I can go up to someone, the guy that made that feature, and say, hey, the people love your feature, let's do more stuff like that. And it's also just another way to generate content. And EVE being a game that relies 100% on the players to generate the content for the game and keeping other players interested, that makes streaming, in my mind, a huge good thing for EVE. And if it continues this growth, then I think we're going to be seeing a lot more streams. We're going to be seeing a lot more people watching streams, because I think a lot of the EVE community, right now doesn't even realize that there are streams available. So
the ones that have waited on gates for me have, that's for sure.
yes.
I can confirm there are people in game who find streams. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think people are surprised to find streams. I know people have stumbled into mine and been like, I didn't realize anybody streamed this game. People sort of also assume you're a multi-game streamer when you're streaming EVE, but more and more that's not the case, which is cool. But that's
all right,
cool.
I'm trying to find Karka here.
Yeah.
Like, what does this display? Does he have a picture on Skype, or does he not? Because I put in the email you gave me, and I get like one dude with a blue background smiling, looking really sharp, and then one profile that has no picture.
It looks like he said no. He didn't have a picture.
All right,
Hold on.
so I'll try this.
All right, let me drag him into TeamSpeak real quick.
Permissions.
Or you can just have him add me. Yeah, just have him add me.
Okay, can do.
Alright, yeah, so back to streaming. Yeah, I've been seeing that a lot as well. I've seen new players coming in, and that's of course another benefit, introducing new players to the game through streaming. And I think doing that through streaming for EVE is a really good thing, because you get to see like actual gameplay. I mean, I love our trailers and everything, but they can sometimes be like a bit deceptive on on how the actual gameplay is. They're
Right.
really cool and they're awesome, and I like.
You mean people don't run around with micro jump drive, brawling widows all the time?
I know I do.
No, I mean, like I do that all the time. Like I know Vic Lacuna does. That was, by the way, my favorite trailer ever for Eve. When it started out, this is Vic. I just got butterflies in my stomach. But showing people, especially like PvP, a lot of people get into the game and they want to get into the PvP side of things, but they have absolutely no idea how to PvP. And a lot of people say it's really simple. You just press orbit and then you press F1. But I feel it's a lot harder than that. And I think people getting to know that through streaming and seeing like, oh, so I have to keep up transversal. That's something that affects stuff. I need to keep myself at a proper range. I need to pilot manually. I need to do all these different things that they might not even have thought about doing before they saw it on stream. So I think streaming in general is really, really beneficial. And I want to say a bunch of stuff. There are some stuff. We're planning some stuff to further our support with the streaming scene. I can say that, and that will be announced during FanFest. So tune into the FanFest stream and keep your ears open. We'll be having some fun stuff to tell you about streaming and the future of streaming at FanFest.
Which is going to be awesome.
And by the way, you guys, if you have my stream chat open, hopefully you do, feel free at any time to cherry pick questions there. I'm kind of leaving it up to you to pick out questions that you have something to say on. Like the in-game browser, there was a question about if there was an expected update. So, but things like that, just feel free to pick those out. Stop me at any time here.
All right.
Because I realize, as much as probably everybody thinks that every CCP dev is omniscient with regards to what you guys are doing, I don't want to ask you a bunch of questions that you guys are not involved in the decisions on. So,
well, I'm very, very happy to commit other people's work to doing stuff. Like, yeah, CCP Veritas is going to fix all your problems, and if he doesn't, complain to him.
There we go. Can we get that in writing or something?
Oh wow, he's gonna be pissed. He's gonna be getting like forum threads made directly at him. Yeah, that's hilarious.
That's fine. If you can't get into Jita at any point, just send him a personal email and it'll be fine.
Oh, I do all the time. He responds quickly too. I encourage other people to do the same. So another question that I get, this is sort of lumping a bunch of questions into one, so break this down however you need to, I guess. But everyone has sort of heard about the rebalancing for the standard ships, the frigates, the cruisers, the non-faction, the non-T2, all the way up through battleships. But one of the questions most people have been asking me throughout is, what can we expect, if anything, with regards to advanced hulls, T2 hulls, and even perhaps capital rebalancing? Is that something that's planned for now, or is that sort of we'll finish what we're planning right now and then we'll assess the situation?
The way we look at these things is we have a general, basically it's a backlog of all the ships that need to be rebalanced, and which is really just every ship. And with a general order, and then that order can move around as...
Whoa. Did we just...
Did someone...
Did you lag... Did Fozzie lag out for you too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
how am I coming through now?
You're
it's fine
now.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, we get all the ships together, and that order can change as time goes on. Pull them in, and then get more specific about what we're going to be doing with them. So with ships that are a little bit further on the horizon, like most of the Tech 2 ships, like capital ships, our plans aren't as set in stone, and we have a lot of ideas, and we have a lot of brainstorming that we've already done on tons of ships. But we try not to talk about too much of that too early, or else people can get their heart set on one idea they really like, and it may not be what we end up doing. So yes, we do. We're definitely going to be hitting all those ships. They're all a little bit further along than the ships that we've talked a bit more about.
Gotcha. And I assume, this sort of is just common sense, I guess, but as you guys are doing this, obviously there's a lot that has to be done between you rebalancing one ship class and when you can rebalance the next one, because so much changes when you introduce the new ships into the game, I assume, right?
Yep, we're always watching the results of our changes, both for how we're going to change that ship again and update it if there's anything we missed, and just update it in general, and then also how that's going to affect our next ships.
Gotcha.
There's also the situation that we don't have anyone that works just on ship balancing. We've got a team of people that work on ship balancing plus other things, which is great. That's the way I like to work myself, where I have multiple problems that I'm kind of multiple projects I'm working on at once, and I can switch back and forth between them so that I can keep the kind of problems I'm facing fresh. But we don't have anyone that's just dedicated 100% ship balancing. We mix it up with all kinds of other stuff.
Gotcha. I'll just let you know, like you're getting a little bit grainy for me. I can still understand you, but don't know.
Yeah, you're getting a bit grainy for me as well.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead.
Wait, I see a couple of questions here in chat that I want to pick out from Roygon. I hope I didn't slaughter that pronunciation on that one. Is CCP looking into UI changes for streamers to hide intel-sensitive details? Yes, we are. So basically, I can't guarantee anything, but that is definitely something that we are thinking about, and we want to kind of meet streamers midway there, because forcing people to have to cover up 90% of their screen if they're doing some sensitive operations is not the ideal way of doing streaming. And then I missed the SCL from last weekend. Were you happy with how it went? I was really happy from what I saw, and I think Fozzie here I think Fozzie here could probably take a moment and talk a bit more about that and how that went, because he was handling streaming the UI from our site, which is where we're coming in to helping these guys out a bit.
In fact, I'll just step in before Fozzie gets to it, but I saw on our Eve, actually, somebody had a screenshot of their boundary violation notification, and they said, Fozzie, that you really made their week by eliminating them for a boundary violation. So.
Yeah, I saw that thread pop up. It was a huge amount of, it was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun on my part. I just really enjoy watching these kind of matches, so being there as the referee is the same thing. I get to watch and enjoy the matches at the same time. So I was super happy with how everything went. We had a great set of matches.
And I guess on that note, because I watched it sort of intermittently, I was streaming actually the time they came on. I didn't intend to, but it just happened that way. And it was deja vu from Alliance Tournament, which is obviously what they were going for, is to create this sort of tournament culture, almost, this continuity between Alliance tournaments. Obviously, the meta will change with people doing more of these tournament-style matches, but do you think there's a potential for the Alliance tournament itself to be changed by using SCL as sort of a guinea pig during the off-season, quote-unquote?
Definitely. Yeah. The great thing for us when it comes to the SCL is that they're running it so regularly that it creates content for the people that like watching the tournaments and like this tournament-style gameplay, which is good. And it also, they have, I don't know, like they have a bit more wiggle room than we do when we do a big event to test out new things and try out some changes. I mean, we did a lot of changes with when we did the New Eden Open, both format-wise, team-wise, and the way we did the matches, and that gave us a really, really good comparison and contrast to the Alliance tournament that we have been, or at least I have been, pondering and thinking about a lot ever since we did the New Eden Open. And I think we're going to be doing we'll do some changes to the Alliance tournament that will add some elements that went well with the NEO, and we'll incorporate those into the Alliance tournament while still trying to keep it as much in the spirit of the Alliance tournament as we can, since it's such an established event.
Cool. I just wanted to remind Stream at this point, because there's still people coming and going, that both of these guys, CCP Bro, CCP Fozzie, is who I'm chatting with right now. And they do have an eye on the stream chat, so if you guys have a question, you can ask it there, and if they see something that they feel like they can answer, then they will hopefully pick it out of there. Otherwise, kind of going through a lot of the questions that were sent to me. One question. Sorry, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer one question from the chat real quick. It's from Tlake. CCP Bro, when will we get info about FanFest stream or broadcasts? I can just tell you that we're finalizing the work, like the work we needed to do before we make the announcement, and it should hopefully go out in like the next sometime in the next 2 weeks. Then you'll get all the information about the FanFest stream and where you can watch it and how if we'll be doing like HD passes and all that stuff.
Cool. Two more questions I see already. First is, and again, I don't know if this is something that you guys have already announced or you can announce or what the situation is, but somebody wanted to know, is there sort of a date floating out there for the summer expansion? And more importantly, is it before or after FanFest? Has that been decided?
I know when the date is, but I can't tell you. That date announcement is coming up not too far away at this point, but it is something that we're going to be making a big PR event out of, so they don't want us spoiling it for people. So sorry I can't tell you when it is, but keep an eye on kind of upcoming events, and it'll get announced before too long.
Cool. I figured as much. A lot of this stuff, it's like, you guys could help my viewer numbers, but I don't feel like CCP would be happy with you divulging. And then another one was, and I've sort of touched on this, but I didn't really follow through with the full question, is that obviously the word rebalancing is sort of a hot word at this point with all the ships getting changed, but after the fact, there's still plans to expand the ship lineup, correct?
Yep, we're going to keep, like we added 5 ships in Retribution, and we're going to keep adding them as time goes on when we see good opportunities to. It's something we, like, I'm always of the opinion that if you have a choice between filling a role by tweaking an existing ship that no one uses and creating a new ship, I prefer tweaking the existing ship, but there's a bunch of roles that would fit perfectly well with new ships too. So we're going to keep doing both.
Right. And this is more of a long-term question. It's really just an opinion thing. But do you guys see any potential issues moving forward with as the game gets more and more diverse with sort of over-diversifying ships, or are you somewhat confident that there's always going to remain a core group that are sort of multitaskers, like the Drake and the Hurricane and things like that are sort of all-rounder ships?
Yeah, it's something that we especially like those kind of very specific, very specialized ships fit well with Tech 2. So in general, you're going to see more specialized ships in Tech 2 and more general ships in Tech 1. When we add new Tech 1 ships, it'll usually be when there's a kind of a wider gap that we see available, and we'll add Tech 2 ships for those kind of very specific, it does this thing ships. And so we're going to be doing both kind of over time. There's a couple of ones that we have planned for the future that I think you guys are going to be really happy with.
Cool. Let's see. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat. It's really rolling at this point. Yeah, somebody's going to buy you guys beers at FanFest. And then I think, bro, you're already committed to buying people from the stream beers when they get there. You might have some trouble with 400 people watching.
Like, if you guys are going to FanFest, then let us know in stream chat, and like, we can give you a high five and a hug when you get here, and possibly a beer if you behave.
I see we've had to down the offer now to a high five and a hug. This is how this goes.
I'll evaluate the situation when I see the numbers of people coming up to me and asking me for free beers.
All right, so
I can say, like, at FanFest last year, the people that I bought beers for were people that had just killed one of my alliance's Titans. So and people that killed Titans during the actual event from a cell phone. So if you kill Titans, then you'll probably get some free beers from us.
So it's going to be like the first 15 there can have a beer from a CCP dev. So be quick. Waste no time in finding bro. And if he refuses, just get really angry and make a scene. That's my recommendation. So actually, Grumpy House in the chat beat me to a question that I don't know if it's just perceived from my stream. I see a lot of people talking about it, but here recently I felt like there's been a rising tension between sort of the nullsec mentality and the wild west element of not the Will Smith movie, I should just say Wild West element of EVE, and that no place is safe and you can lose everything all the time, versus sort of this idea that, I don't know, that CCP, especially with your release of Dust, is obviously sort of exposed to an entire new market, and obviously Dust will be its own thing, but that's going to draw more attention to EVE, and I think probably it has already, along with other publicity efforts, but there's this constant struggle for you guys, I'm sure, to make the game approachable for newer players, to not just lock it off with all of us that are already here, but at the same time you don't want to ruin sort of the, I guess my choice of word would be brutality of the game. And so, again, I realize you guys have to keep the peace, but do you feel like one side of this is more valid in that this whole... are you happy, I guess, with the security of HiSec now for newer players? Do you feel like a new player can join and be comfortable within reason to stay with the game?
What I'll say is that I think like there's a lot we need to do to improve the accessibility of the game, but that the accessibility problems of the game aren't down to the danger of the game. The danger of the game is one of the greatest things about it. The danger of the game is what draws people to the game. The accessibility issues are things like where our user interface sucks, things like where we don't explain concepts to people well at all, where our tutorial is bad. Fixing those are key. Giving people a better user experience. This whole UX thing is something that we really have a lot that we still need to improve on. We've made big strides in the last year. We need to keep making big strides. But this is EVE, and we're not going to turn it into something that's not EVE. Don't worry about it. The people that say that we're somehow trying to boil a frog or whatever. I honestly have no time of day for them. It's a ridiculous tinfoil. The government is coming to put AIDS into my chicken nuggets
right.
idea, and it is not true in the slightest.
Right. I think as a community, at least from all the people that I play with that I know are sort of involved in different elements, people have enough faith in CCP to know that you guys aren't going to completely screw us over, either the older players or the newer players. But just for my part, I really enjoy seeing sort of, because when I started, like, the tutorials and the introductory phase of EVE was much harder than it is now, and all of the things that have been done, including Crime Watch, which I said very early I didn't like for my own personal purposes. Like, the suspect thing is still a bit wonky, but I really like it overall. So for my part, I think it's awesome that the game is more accessible now, and a lot of the people who are on my stream, it's a lot of newer players and prospective players who have just signed up, and pretty good feedback across the board. So I'm really happy with those changes.
New players are content free. Players are the content for a sandbox game like EVE. We don't produce some kind of like boxed content that comes along an assembly line and then gets outputted. The content is you guys, and so more players is more content, and we're always really happy about that. What I can say is, like the example you gave of Crime Watch. Crime Watch is an example. If you're looking for the way we approach these kind of issues, Crime Watch is a great example of that and how it worked out. The mantra with Crime Watch was give people the information they need to make their decisions, but don't protect them from the results of those decisions. So you always should have the power to make a stupid decision, but that stupid decision shouldn't be something you make because the UI is terrible and there was no way for you to know what was going to happen.
Right.
You shouldn't have to read a guide outside of the game to understand why you're going to die if you do this. The game should give you, if you do this, then this will happen, and then all the consequences of what that means and how that affects everyone around you, that's for you to figure out. That's for you to use your intelligence about. But the game should be giving the information required to make those hard choices.
Right. And I see... Sorry, Karka. I was going to say, I see Karka's on. Karka, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself since we all got a chance?
Yeah, I really had a hard time trying to get on Skype here, but I'm really such a noob at Skype here, but it doesn't really matter. I'm Karka Gertchen. I'm the one streaming together with CO4 most of the time, or streaming myself as well. So most of you people might have seen me, I don't know. But
yeah, there's a lot of crossover.
I actually wanted to ask something about that whole criminal thing you're talking about at the moment. I've been flying a lot of logic cruisers lately. And is there like any way to avoid going suspect as a logistic cruiser?
To avoid going suspect, yeah, definitely. The way you get suspect as a logistic cruiser is you inherit people's flags. So if you're repping a suspect, you go suspect. But if you're in a war, if you're in 0-0, you never go suspect. If you get them to shoot you first, if you're in factional warfare, basically the way to avoid being a suspect as a logistics cruiser is exactly the same as the ways to avoid being a suspect as everyone else.
Okay, but that's not something I don't understand then, since if you rep somebody who actually engages a suspect, then you get suspect.
I think it's...
well, if you basically, when you're repping someone, whatever flags they get, you get.
Well, and it's also if you... Well, I think to Karka's point is he's talking about if you rep... it's sort of the out-of-corp thing, and we've talked about this in that for those who've been around the game for a while, neutral reps, which is somebody who is out of corp and would bring logistics to rep somebody who is in the middle of a fight, especially during a war deck, was infuriating because you couldn't touch the logistics, and they could just sit there and rep all day. And that
I can make an official declaration on behalf of the EVE Game Design Department. Our official position is fuck neutral repping.
Yes, seconded to that. So I think that was one of the things that immediately, as soon as I saw that, I was kind of like, okay, whatever this suspect may cost me in terms of low-sec mechanics as I use them now, that's all worth it. But part of what you guys have instituted to counteract that is that if you're not involved in an engagement and you involve yourself in an engagement by repping somebody, then you become suspect even if neither of the two parties involved are suspect. So if two neutrals are fighting and you rep one, well, if you're not in their corp or you're not in some way involved in that fight already, then you become suspect for sort of shifting the odds unfairly.
If they have a limited engagement, yes.
Right.
In cases where they wouldn't like it, so if they're in like a war, for instance, or something like that, then yes. If it's a situation where they are, like, if they're in the same corp shooting each other, then repping them doesn't get you suspect. If you rep the guy that didn't get any flags, so if the guy that who got attacked in it, you rep that guy, you'll get his weapon timer, but will keep you from jumping through a gate or docking, but you won't get any kind of suspect in that case.
Right, and I think to Karka's point is what we've run into is the fact that the person that you're repping doesn't have to be suspect to inherit the suspect flag. They just have to have a limited engagement, and then if you rep them, you get a suspect flag.
Yes.
Right, so I think that's the confusion for a lot of people is that, like you said, you inherit flags, but at the same time, if they have a limited engagement, when you inherit that flag, you just inherit suspect. You don't inherit the limited engagement itself.
Yes, that is the case. That was a decision that was made. I remember when that question came up about what should be done in that case. The issue is that this kind of chaining limited engagements, where if you can get involved in a limited engagement, then that limited engagement chains to you. It's actually just creating a bunch of new engagements, spawning them, and that gets really, really confusing really fast. You can end up with some weird situations where that original fight is ended, but you still have a limited engagement with the other guy, and and then that could carry on further down a chain of people. And that was one of the big problems with the old Crime Watch system, was they created these really weird connections, and that manifested itself in a lot of weird ways. Like, you could keep someone logged off even if they've left system by shooting one of their drones in the olden days. There's really weird stuff that could happen. So the decision was made to keep it simple, to go suspect in that case, and also the decision very heavily drew in that official company position of fuck neutral logic.
Yeah, just one last thing about this then. So basically, if you're in a site without any offensive modules and without any offensive drones, you go suspect every single time you rep somebody.
Not necessarily. It depends. Because if I have the right to be attacking somebody and you have the same rights, for instance, if we're fighting a war target and you were...
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, but I just mean about fighting a low sec like we normally do.
Right. If you don't have a limited engagement with the person and I do, for instance, if I jump through and shoot at a guy who's a suspect, I have a limited engagement and you're not a part of it. So when you come in and rep me, even though he's suspect, you're involving yourself in an engagement that's already established, and that's why you go suspect. And that's something that I've only recently sort of figured out, that in the beginning, if for people who've been watching my stream for a while, have Bro or Fozzie, have either of you seen the new video with the spider tanking Vexers that was posted?
No.
Okay, it was crazy.
No, I haven't seen.
It's one of the best YouTube or best EVE videos I've seen in a really long time. I wish I had it up so I could link it, but the production quality on it is amazing. But basically, it shows remote repping vexors, and those have become more popular. We tried that once, and the same guys who made the video, who are quite good at it, were out in remote repping Ishtars, I believe. Their whole gang went suspect and jumped into high sec, and we weren't suspect, so we thought we could just pick them off one by one, and it ended in a total clusterfuck because we didn't understand the suspect mechanics. So like,
I remember that.
Yeah. So I aggressed and they repped me, but then they went suspect because they weren't part of the engagement, and it was awful. Like, I was just sitting there like, I don't understand what happened there, but I hate it. And then we figured that out over time. So I think a lot of people have had that moment where they're like, all right, I need to sit down and figure this shit out. But it makes more sense.
Yeah, it is
now.
Unfortunately one of the remaining complicated areas.
Well,
if you really want to avoid going suspect, what you can do is use your safety, and it'll prevent you from repping someone who you would go suspect.
I think it's only really complicated because we were so used to the old way. I mean, I think that's true for everything. Newer players joining, I personally, looking at it now, understanding what I do, I think it's pretty straightforward. But there are some unique scenarios you can get yourself into with aggro, so I can understand that. I've got 2 more questions that were mailed to me. One is about nullsec, and he says, is there anything in the works to make nullsec more dynamic? All we see at the moment is big coalitions sitting pretty on their assets. Is there any incentives for nullsec alliances to rotate through space?
Basically, this is something that gets talked about every 6 or 8 months in EVE for the past decade, like clockwork. What happens is, oh, look, now the Phoenix Alliance is going to take over the whole, is going to just sit there and no one will ever defeat them. Oh, look, there's Band of Brothers, no one will ever defeat them. Oh, look, there's Goon Swarm, no one will ever defeat them. Oh, look, there's the Northern Coalition, no one will ever defeat them. The Drone Russians, no one will ever defeat them. So I can say this, it's going to fall apart. We're not really concerned about people militarily conquering the whole galaxy, because then their military people get super bored and start eating each other. And that's just the way that the game goes. You can't make a big blue donut, because everyone will get really bored and leave your blue donut and give you the finger on the way out. And everyone involved knows that. That's something that all the leaders of these alliances are smart enough to know that they can't do that. So we're not concerned about the game becoming all blue, no.
And, you know, to your point, we've seen some of that it's sort of self-maintaining, really. I agree with that. And like you said, it's sort of cyclical, but it's a good question.
Yeah. You could theoretically have an economic dominance of the entire game. That we have to be more careful about, because those people don't get bored from lack of fighting. But the actual, like, as long as you rely on PvPers to defend yourself, if you try to become a giant, happy, fun time 0-0, everyone's friends zone, you'll go the way of the Northern Coalition and just rot from the inside and fall apart.
Right. Okay, another question. Wow, this guy cited his sources and everything. Fozzie, apparently you said, and they give me a link, I'll not verify this, but I'm sure it's right. You said that you're not allowed to suicide gank. I remember that being a discussion topic. Somehow this was a big revelation for a lot of people. And he said, I wonder why CCP are not allowed to suicide gank, since your player accounts are not connected to CCP, and I guess while you guys are playing, you're not actually representatives of CCP. And he said, is there anything else that CCP are not allowed to do, game mechanics you're not allowed to take part in? And how are you guys allowed, or how are you all able to balance suicide ganking and things of that nature if you're not actively involved in them?
Yep. So there's a whole bunch. We basically just have, like, in terms of like a what's the word I'm looking for? A agreement on conduct for how we act in the game. So yeah, we don't like swear at people too much either. We try to keep all that to a minimum. We don't go around randomly scamming people. Basically, we try to not be gigantic dicks, even though we're very, very intent on preserving all your rights to be gigantic dicks. So basically anything that falls under the category of being a perfectly legitimate gigantic dick, we refrain from that.
Right.
And that includes suicide gank in this case. As for how to balance it, we balance things all the time that we don't interact with on a daily basis, because this is a ginormous game, if you haven't noticed, and there's no way that we can be involved in everything on a regular basis. Also, I'm pretty sure I've suicide ganked more than anyone who's ever asked me that question. Just not since I joined.
It's good. It's good. Get your ganking done while you're young is the story there before CCP hires you, and you have to not be.
I used to pirate the space lanes from the newly introduced drone regions to Wrens and just get these Tech 1 haulers with no tank filled with Zidrine when it was at its peak. Those were the days. And then a bunch of other people started suicide ganking, and everyone got wise and stopped running around with no... Like, nowadays, it's much harder to find targets. Back then, nobody was expecting it, so people would just run around, hey, I'm in an Iteron 5, and nothing but cargo expanders filled to the brim with Zid. This is going to be fine.
You started a trend, I'm afraid, and harvested Care Bear tears for many years. A question also about that, a lot of people, and again, this is sort of this counter movement to the whole idea of making the game more approachable, and people sort of like to overgeneralize that as making high-sec OP. But are you guys happy with what's been done with regards to the mining barges after now it's had time to sort itself out? Do you feel like it was a good thing to do, or do you think maybe it almost went too far in the direction of making them indestructible?
They definitely aren't indestructible.
Well,
what I'll say is that we're happy with the fact that it's given people choice and options. For the same ways we've done with all the other ship balancing, we wanted to give people the ability to choose different trade-offs and make those kind of valuable choices. And it's still to the point where if you want the best yield, you have to sacrifice your tank, and the people are sitting around in Mackinaws instead. That being said, I do think the Mackinaw is probably a bit too... We leaned a little bit too powerful with that. The combination of big cargo or big ore hold on it with the HB is probably a bit much, but I think it's in a much better place than it was before. And that you now have, it's not just the Hulk dominating everything, it's you have an actual choice.
Right.
I got a question as well, if you don't have one, Squibbles.
No, go ahead.
About the whole armor changes, some things came up now, of course, with the medium utility armor wrappers and the small and the large, of course. How do you feel about them? I've been trying them out on the Stepper Fleet issue, I've been trying them out on the Brutix. They seem nice, but usually the fight lasts a bit longer than like 1 minute on those ships. I can see them really working well on frigates. But without the rig you were talking about introducing with the overheat bonus, I think, if I read it correctly, how do you feel about them? They seem to be a bit lacking compared to, well,
I was so excited
shield
about
boosters.
I was so excited about that rig too.
The rig had some issues, but I like the idea. I'm not giving up on the concept. I think there's tons of stuff that, like, this area, overheating is one of our best mechanics in this game. It does a lot of things really, really well. The problem is, though, that we don't have a lot connected into it. It's a mechanic basically got added and then just kind of got left. And I would really like to introduce more modules, more rigs, more skills that all interact with this overheating mechanic to let you do more cool things with it. And yeah, so the rig's not gone away. It's just on pause.
Gotcha.
And as for the rest of the armor changes, I'm happy with them so far. It's still a bit early to tell for everything, but I think they put us in the right direction. I actually, if you remember, I changed the name of the thread to make it clear, something I had never intended these changes to ever be the be-all, end-all. Now we've come down from the mountain with the tablets of armor tanking, and everything is solved. Not by any means. This is a step in the right direction. It is not the job done, but I think it was a positive step.
Oh, at least, especially the rig changes for the active armor tanking, they are really good.
Agreed.
They keep the speed.
Another question sort of in the realm of armor versus shield. Somebody specifically wanted to know, and again, I realize this is sort of out of the range of what you guys are working on right this moment, but do you guys have any thoughts on shield super capitals and how to make them more viable in the game, given the current sort of armor doctrines being everything?
Supercaps are a tricky situation in that because subcaps and to a large extent now even caps are something you switch around based on your doctrines. You can have both a shield doctrine and an armor doctrine, and you can switch based on the needs. You don't really, people don't just switch around their supercaps. Well, some do, but it's not as easy. So that's always going to be a tricky thing. The biggest reason for it, of course, is slaves. I don't think the solution is to give armor or to give shield slaves. It's a tough problem, I'll say. It's something that we definitely want them to be balanced over time. I don't think that's necessarily going to mean that everyone switches, because then that would just mean that we've made a shield too powerful. And there's a lot of momentum behind everyone being in armor ones. Part of the shield problem is that the Mimitar ones all suck, and we don't like that. So yeah, there's a lot of issues there, but there's no easy answers, unfortunately.
Right, and as I think you alluded to earlier, that's something that's sort of far on the horizon, if anything, correct?
It's further on the horizon than the remaining vanilla Tech 1 ships on subcaps and command ships, which are the stuff we've already announced that we're working on.
Okay, here's one that's really good for a newer player. I haven't read the whole thing through, so hopefully this doesn't end in everybody walk the dinosaur. I feel obligated to rush into Faction Frigate 3, Cruiser 3, and Destroyer 5, Battle Cruiser 5 to maximize my training time as I grow in-game. Was this an intended result of the summer expansion?
Not really an intended result as much as a side effect that we knew was going to come, and we just decided we were going to roll with it. The goal of these skill changes is to put the skill system into a place that, with hindsight, we would have rather have just done in the first place. Like, we would rather have made the skill system more streamlined in the first place. You can have a more clear path forward. Instead, turning the Tech 2 branches off into more of a tree shape rather than a weird matrix. But obviously we didn't back then, so we want to fix it now. We want a skill system that we can then build on for the next 10 years. And that's going to mean what is essentially a bit of a disruptive change. Most of these side effects of this change aren't ones we're particularly happy about, but they are ones that we feel aren't going to be the end of the world by any means. We're giving out a lot of skill points, which we don't generally want to be doing, but we do sometimes, obviously. We're basically causing the people who are min-maxers we're deciding they're training for them for like a month and a bit of training.
Right.
So that's something, again, we don't generally want to be doing, but yeah, it's a case where we're just rolling with the side effects, and it's kind of a one-time pain that will then be out of the way.
Yeah, I should have really read that whole thing, because I think the point to be made there is in sort of this period of flux where I say where you guys are changing the skill tree. That is the logical thing to do, but certainly after the fact, if anything, it will really keep players from having to go that route of rushing 5 on those ship types because of the diversified skills.
Yep, I'm just going to be right back.
Okay.
Yes.
And all we're left with is bro.
This is a terrible, terrible thing.
Well, we'll settle.
Yes.
Okay, so
Think about it as well. I got a lot of questions about the ships.
People are tinfoiling already. As soon as you said we,
oh, I know.
your chat, like, Sir Scribble is joining CCP.
That's actually one of my court members who loves to try and cause calamity at any point. So I'll just,
okay.
Okay, here's one, bro, that's more community based. Something finally bro can answer us on, right? Fozzie's really stealing your. You need to have a word with him. I think he's trying to upstage you.
Nah, like I can't even compete when it comes to like things that deal with ships and in-game mechanics. Like, that's not my area of expertise. That's why I wanted him here for this talk, so he could answer like most of your questions there.
I want an export of like his brain's encyclopedic knowledge of ships. So if he
I think a lot of people would want that.
If we could black market that, that would be excellent. So here's one about community and sort of events that I think is a really good question that a lot of people don't bring up. But it says some of us really like events in Eve, which are really rare. Will CCP ever make events which will span through 3 to 4 weeks and lead to an epic boss fight with drops for anyone who participated? Which I guess one could argue is very vaguely incursion-esque, but I think I don't know, what is it that you guys call the events? Like what happened with the Mimitar?
Yeah, it's live events.
Live events. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a bigger team working on the live events now than we have had for a while, as far as I know. And there's definitely some plans in making them more frequent and making them bigger and making them cooler and more accessible. I'm not 100% sure that I can say this, but like I want to stream the live events. I want to make them like actual cool thing so you can follow what's happening in the lore and storyline by not having to actively maybe participate in the event or like do those 40 jumps where the event is being held. So like we're definitely looking into increasing the amount and making bigger and better live events.
Yep, we just had a pretty nice one last Thursday for anyone that was able to jump in on that. I know Gradaris, who was in the stream chat here, was there, where the Kaldari Home Guard went and shot up some protesters, and got to see the results of that. We've already announced that there's going to be a really, really big live event to coincide with PAX East. So for anyone who is interested in some of this awesome stuff, that PAX East is going to be a really awesome joint live event between Eve and Dust.
Yeah, I'm somewhat ashamed to say I actually haven't participated in live events. I wasn't even really aware of them for a while, and typically when I was aware, it was 2 hours from when it started, and I was 35 jumps away. But I've heard rave reviews about sort of... I feel like a lot of people who have participated in them are really passionate about them, and I think they get this sense that it's about to get a lot bigger from the recent events that have been done. So they're really excited about it, and I'm glad to hear that that's kind of in the works.
I got like a small question about the live events as well, since they always hear from some other person or somebody else. Is there actually an easy way to figure out when there's going to be? Perhaps there more people want to know that. Or I might be the only one stupid enough not to figure out.
Yep, there's a channel called Live Events, and there's also a Twitter account called Eve_live events, with live events as one word. And that Twitter account is an official CCP Twitter that's used by some of the devs who work on live events to tweet out some of the stuff in lead up to when events are happening. So for instance, on this event last Thursday, they tweeted out, this event is happening here soon, and then with more and more frequency as it came closer.
Okay, so I don't feel as stupid now.
Yeah, this will all probably become more accessible in the future as we continue our work. As we continue our work into more community interaction, and because you guys are awesome, and that's just.
How much have you had to drink, bro? Be honest. It's getting a little sappy.
Nothing.
I love you guys so much.
You're my best friends.
I like our community, and I like interacting with it. I think we do a lot of it, but I think we can still do more. So.
And a question on that, because I think it's sort of interesting that you guys are in this delicate position of, I think a lot of people understand that it's kind of a precarious thing for you all to be too involved in the community, because there's just things that you can't answer and things that you can't do for people that a lot of people will ask about. So I guess, obviously you all are still around, so the community involvement is really positive, but do you think you'll see more CCP independently get involved in the community, or do you almost expect there to be like CCP delegates almost who are more community involved? Like, is there an interest from other devs to get involved with streams and these sorts of things, or is it one of those things where the people who work most closely with it are typically going to be involved?
It's something where, like, obviously there's a wide variety when it comes to how outgoing devs are with this kind of stuff, how much they just enjoy this, whether, like, for some people it just kind of tires them out to have this kind of involvement. For some, they gain energy from it. And for anyone at CCP who's excited about this stuff and wants to do it, they can definitely be involved with it. They need to talk to like our PR guys, but our PR guys are awesome, like CCP Manifest, and they will, if you express an interest that you want to do stuff with the player interaction, he will make that possible. That's basically what I did when I arrived. I would ask him, hey, is there anything you want me to do that would be cool for me to do? And whenever a player asked me, hey, can you come on my podcast or whatever, I would then ask him. And if he said yes, which he always has so far, then we do it. So yeah, it's definitely not something that you have to be involved in a certain department to do.
Yeah, and we can give CCP Manifest a little shout out here and thank him for pushing this event and advertising it on our Facebook and Twitter on such short notice, because I forgot. Even
though he forgot about me.
Yeah, he forgot about you.
Yeah, well, I'm not offended, not at all.
That explains the underwhelming turnout, right, bro?
Yes, it does.
You leave out Fozzie, and it's just 3 idiots talking about Eve. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of like all the questions I had to ask. I'm sure the stream is going to keep rolling them, but I guess I just wanted to say, like, you all as devs, is there anything that you really want to sort of reach out to the community and talk about while you've got 300 and however many people? Is there anything that you're really passionate about to share? And then I guess we can get back into questions.
All right, like, first, before we do that, I just want to touch on BD282 just said thoughts on a dedicated Eve streaming site or built-in client streaming. I'm thinking about it. Like, that's pretty much all I can say right now. I'm thinking about it. We're thinking about it, and I would like to see that happen, but we need to like do cost and benefits calculations on that and look into that before we like dive into doing that. We need to scope out what development time and resources we need, and but hopefully we can get something like that up at some point. So what I want to say to the community and like the 370 people that we have around here is the faster that the streaming scene grows without our intervention, without us doing this, like a dedicated Eve streaming site or built-in client streaming or something like that, the more people stream, the more people watch streams and get involved in that. That all increases the viability of furthering the support that we would do for the streaming scene. So the bigger it gets, the more support, or the easier it will be to make a convincing argument to spend development time in supporting the streaming scene, really.
Cool. And actually, before Fozzie, before we get to you, I would just like to say, from my experience with it, I think like continuity of streams has been a big thing. For a lot of you guys who are watching, I see you guys on my stream like every day. So it's been awesome to see other streamers come in, and I completely agree with Bro. I mean, not even from their end justifying expanding on it and developing with it, but just for the community as a whole, like having content that you guys or myself on my off days can tune into and just like be confident that there's going to be a good Eve stream up is amazing. So from all of you guys who have started streaming, like, keep up with the good work. It's pretty awesome. So sorry, Fozzie, your go.
Let's give a big shout out to everyone involved with giving us feedback for all of our balance changes. You've been a huge help all the time. The Features and Ideas forum on the test server, and we're going to be getting some more sets of ship threads up in Features and Ideas before too long. So keep an eye out there, and when they come, give us your feedback.
Cool. That's pretty much all I have thus far. If you guys want to stick around and field some more questions, that's cool. I feel like we've covered a lot of it though, so I'm happy to wrap it up if you guys are as well.
Let's see what people have in the stream chat, if there's any.
We do like 10 minutes.
Though.
Sure.
Somebody mailed to me
Sure.
about the overview changes to the battle cruisers.
Mm-hmm.
You changed them now to 2 separate parts. Is there something like that going to happen like with the cruisers as well? Since there, the role seems to be a lot more different than the Battlecruiser ones.
Yes, we don't split ships like that very often, with good reason, because it's annoying as hell. It breaks a ton of things, and so basically, like, I split those ships up, and then I had to spend a week of fixing all the bugs that came from that, and I missed one big one, and I'm the guy that accidentally made you not be able to produce any of them for a
bastard.
day out of one. So yeah, our game isn't really built for splitting them up like that, but the reason we did it was because we're switching around. Like, you know how bunch of modules used to have this module has gigantic CPU use, but then certain ships would have a minus 99.9% to CPU use of that to limit it.
Yeah, like drop-ups and stuff.
Yeah, that's a really bad way of doing it. It's the old way of doing it, and there's a lot of reasons why doing it with a system where the module can tell what ships it's supposed to be able to be fitted onto is way better. We do that through groups, but the problem is that then we needed a different group for every time that you need to use it like this. So for Retribution 1.1, we converted all these modules over, but to do that we had to split up the battlecruisers because we needed to allow gang links to fit onto the combat battlecruisers, but not onto the attack battlecruisers. And we had to split up the transport ships because we needed to allow covert ops cloaks and the blockade runners, but not on the deep space transports. So that's why those two got split up. That was for that behind-the-scenes change, and the end result is that we've gotten rid of those annoying 99% CPU bonuses that made it impossible to tell how your ship would fit.
So you don't go 1400 over your CPU? I always loved that. It was I didn't even realize that's why you guys had split that. That makes a lot more sense now. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So in the future, we don't expect to be splitting ships up into groups, different groups like that on any kind of regular basis. The last time, we may add some new groups occasionally, but even that won't happen too often. But yeah, the splitting up thing, I basically had to promise CCP Master Plan, who had to clean up some of my messes, help me clean up some of my messes with this. From the programming side, I basically, like, if I decide to split up another group, I'm pretty sure he'll just murder me in my sleep. So
okay, so that's
well, if we can't see him on overview anymore, we'll help him hide the body. How about that?
A lot of people have like overview for logistics and stuff, and they kind of messed up now.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I think I sent you a tweet the day that it happened. I was streaming and somebody undocked a tornado and it wasn't on my overview, and I was like, oh my god. I thought something miraculous had happened, and it turns out now I just hadn't reset my overview.
Yeah, the stealth turned. The last time we had this problem was with when Tech 3s were introduced. The issue is that we have the ability to change all of your default overviews, but we don't have any kind of easy way of reaching into your computer and changing your custom overviews. And everyone uses custom overviews, unfortunately. So it means that when we want to add a new ship group, we basically just have to tell you guys to do it yourself. I remember when Tech 3 ships was the last time this happened, and before that it was when Hictors were introduced. And I had a ton of fun day one with a broadsword. I just fit out a brawling broadsword and ran around killing people that couldn't see me. Great.
So about that code of conduct.
Yeah, it's pretty apparent that CCP Fozzie had to make some drastic changes to the way he plays the game when he joined CCP.
Yeah,
I just have to be more subtle about it. That's all. Yeah, I have to do my trolling in a meta fashion.
So if I get blapped by an invisible broadsword the next few days, I'll know. It's kind of like unmasking a superhero at that point. Everybody look out for an invisible broadsword. Somebody did have a question about industry and 0-0. I made them specify a bit more. I don't honestly know much about industry and nullsec. It's never been something I've done, but evidently I think what they're asking about is the limited manufacturing resources in terms of, I guess, NPC stations in null, being able to have manufacturing slots. Is there any plans for that, or are you guys kind of content with the industrial capacity of nullsec as it is?
We are not content with the industrial capacity of nullsec. I can definitely say that. As for exactly what's going to happen, that's going to... I'm going to choose not to say anything right now.
But only because you don't want to say it, right? Nobody has a gun to your head.
Yeah, not because it would. Yeah, I'm just not going to say anything more because this has already given you, I think, enough of a. I feel like
I really wanted like a stock market ticker of stuff as you guys sort of drop these vague non-hints, and it's just people on their phones like buy, sell. All of nullsec would be warped within an hour. I'm dry on questions, Karka. If you have anything.
Like that's one I got myself, but I think you figured out a good fit for like the stab. I think you said like every single ship is like a good roll now.
I was skeptical.
I to fit anything on Stabber. I'm not. I wonder how you fit it.
You talking to me? My fitting?
No, I'm talking to CCP Fozzie.
Oh.
With the stabber?
Yeah. What's the idea about the Stabber? That it seems to be so much worse than all the other ones.
Yeah, its DPS is really low. It's one of the ones that we need to take another close look at. I was a little bit hesitant with it. In some ways, it came out a little bit pre-nerfed because, like, for instance, giving it the 7.5% fall off instead of the 10% fall off bonus. It's one of those cases where I wanted to get a good look at how well people would be able to take advantage of all that speed without the danger of it running away with the game. Now that we've had a bit of a better look at how it survives in the wild, it's definitely up for a very close review in the near future.
Anything I can put dual prop on, I'll fly till the end of my days. So I'm alright with the plain stabber.
I just like having some drones on it.
Yeah, 2 drones wouldn't be bad. Let's see. Somebody else had a question about PvE, which is obviously something we've not talked too much about. I'm not sure what they intended with this question. It's a bit pointed and a bit vague at the same time, but they said, what do you feel about EVE's PvE? It's pretty much a core mechanic in EVE, and it's quite rotten, which I'm not sure how to interpret that, but I assume maybe they mean like redundant missioning once you hit level 4 is a bit boring, or I'm not sure, but I guess thoughts on
there's a lot of things that aren't good. Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's a really tricky one. We are very limited in what we can do. We don't have the capability to do what you see WoW doing and the Old Republic doing and Guild Wars 2 doing. They've got these gigantic teams of content writers. We just can't staff that many. With good reason, because companies that hire 500 people to write content and do voice acting, turns out they all kind of go bankrupt. So, like, we're trying to go for a more sustainable path, which means we can't follow that exact model, which is a bit of a bummer because they make some pretty awesome content there, and we just can't match it in that way. As for the way, like, there's definitely a lot of things we need to improve, and we recognize it. And there's stuff we're going to be improving over time to try to make it more interesting to mission. It was one of those situations too where a lot of people don't really realize how much fun other people have running missions, but there's a bunch of people out there that are really enjoying it, which is sometimes hard for some people to understand, but it's just kind of a different way of approaching the game.
Well, and to add to that, I think the sort of rebirth of incursions and the rebalancing, and even the NPC AI changes, I think there are a lot of people who still really do enjoy it. I think a lot of people reach a point where they're a PvEer and maybe they plateau a little bit, and that they're doing the same missions over and over for the first time since they started the game. But I see a lot of people even, streaming PvE and things like that. But yeah, I guess I can understand where they're coming from. But as far as PvE content, but I'm not the best person to, I guess, offer an opinion on that because I haven't shot a rat since I needed sex status. So.
Oh, dude, you did a ratting stream the other day.
Yeah, my stream often gets called the best ratting stream in North America, and that's only when I can't find a fight. I shoot at NPCs with pride. Somebody else had another question. Somebody asked, is there any thoughts on making torpedoes and cruise missiles more viable without target painters?
Yes. Cruise missiles' problems aren't really that they're tied to target painters. Like, the tied to target painters thing isn't really the core issue for cruise missiles. They just sort of suck all the time. So they are their own thing. Like, we need to fix cruise missiles. Torps, they're way better without target painters than they were before Retribution. So if anyone hasn't tried them since Retribution, they're way better now because we made a skill, guided missile precision affect them, as well as all the associated rigs and implants. So you can now get them to a much smaller explosion radius than before, quite easily. And so that's been a big help for them. They're actually in a pretty decent place. They kind of kick ass now.
Yeah.
Same with hams. If a lot of you have probably noticed hams and rockets because everyone's using those. Torps have a lot of similar advantages. I don't want to make torps like frig lappers. So yeah, we're not going to suddenly make them kill frigs instantly. But I think I'm fairly happy with how torps are. Not even remotely happy with how cruise missiles are.
Right. I don't think I've seen anybody use cruise missiles in PvP for a very long time. Another question is, in terms of the tech levels, somebody asked, we have T3 cruisers. Is there any possibility we could eventually see T3 frigates or things of that nature?
As possibly. I'm definitely hesitant about frigates for Tech 3. Frigates really feel like the kind of thing where if you put a Tech 3 version in, your best case scenario is that no one will ever use them, and your worst case scenario is you'll have the Dramiel problem like times 100. So frigates, I'm more hesitant about. Other ship classes, I would love to see a Tech 3 industrial ship, for instance, like that lets you combine different aspects, like of hauling and mining and gas mining and all this kind of stuff, and lets you mix and match things in different ways, maybe with like a cloak, and you can do cool things there. That would be something that I think there's definitely room for. Tech 3 in larger ship classes is a bit easier to balance than in frigates. So yeah, there's definitely more stuff we can do with that. It's a pretty big investment in time compared to some other ships. Like the amount of artwork we have to put into a Tech 3 class is much higher than it is for, say, just adding a new set of ships, especially if we were just adding like a Tech 2 refaction variant.
Right.
So it's definitely something that could be on the horizon. I'd say as far as Tech 3 ships, like new Tech 3 ships, my favorite idea for them is a Tech 3 industrial ship.
Gotcha.
But I can't say for sure if we're going to do that. That's like all still kind of a bit further on the horizon.
All right, and then this will be my last question. I have people mailing me in-game with questions. This will be the last one that I directly ask, I guess, because if not, somebody will murder me in my sleep. People want to know about walking in station.
Okay. So yeah, I saw a bunch of questions about that in the stream chat too.
Right.
Walking in stations is something that we have essentially on the back burner right now. It's a project that when it was first approached was not approached correctly, as everyone kind of recognizes. And when we do eventually come back to it, and I'm sure we will someday, it is going to be because we have a clear plan for how to make it engaging gameplay with it, which we didn't originally, or CCP didn't originally. And so that's really all I can say. I can't say when there will be big changes with that. It's not our main priority right now. Our main priority is making a great spaceship simulation.
Fair enough. You mean I'm not going to get great walking content anytime soon?
Not right away, no.
All the spaceship stuff, it gets kind of boring. Sometimes I just want to go for a stroll.
You know, if you're interested in walking simulations, there's this great PlayStation 3 game you may be interested in trying.
Really? Tell me more.
Yes. It's called Dust 514. You get to shoot people on the ground.
You can walk in that,
yes,
yeah.
You can walk as much as you want until someone shoots you, and then you'll kind of lie down.
For a minute, I thought you were going to suggest I go play Quap.
Quap is also a really good. That's how walking stations is going to be when we finally release it.
Like you don't get the gravity quite sorted before you actually open the station up. I want to see that.
You pretty much open the station, the infamous door, and you walk into, like we talked about this in the podcast, you walk into a kitchen and it's just a cooking simulator and you have to use Quap to walk everywhere.
Oh shit, that would be great. Oh, that's pretty much it. Karka, I'm sticking to my guns here by not asking any more questions, even though now people have sent even more. So I've mailed you
There's
one.
a few from the stream I can pick up here. So we've had a couple questions about pirate ships, about pirate frigates, pirate cruisers. One just came up about the Phantasm and the Ashimu. Yes, we definitely need to be hitting the pirate ships. Basically, some are working really well, others aren't. The Worm is in need of a lot of help. All of the Santa ships under the Nightmare are in need of a lot of help. The Blood Raider ships under the Balgorn are all needing a lot of help. There's definitely a lot that needs to be worked on there. I can't say for sure when we're going to have all that done, but it's definitely something we're not just going to be ignoring them. This is one of the things where there's a lot of ships in this game that need a lot of help. Another question, we had a question about the POS system. So that's another big topic. And the POS system is something that, again, it's not being ignored. I'm not at liberty to make any announcements about that now, but all I can really say is that this isn't something that we've decided not to work on. It's something that we've decided we need to work on in a different way.
Okay. Can I ask one more question, which I got in the mail?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you think that the Tech 1 logistics ships we got now are more powerful than expected, since they're so much cheaper than the Tech 2 versions of it? Or is that how you like them to be?
They're probably about as powerful as I expected them to be. They are a lot cheaper, but you still get a good, solid advantage by going to Tech 2. If we do decrease their power, it'll probably be in ways to differentiate them from the Tech 2 versions while still allowing them to easily work alongside the Tech 2 versions. So we'll probably keep the range and speed and such the same and keep their cap transfer amount the same. But we may do things like slightly decrease their rep amount or things like their lock range or sensor strength a little bit to make them more vulnerable to E-War. There's a lot of possibilities there. I don't think that there's something that needs to be drastically nerfed. There's also some of the effectiveness of them is tied to the effectiveness of off-grid links, and that's something that when we get that problem a bit more cleared up, that should help a bunch of other things in the game, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I didn't even dare to ask about that one.
yeah. There's people would just start raging. There's a lot of pent-up aggression. We need a support group once you guys rebalance those, just so everybody can get all their demons out. I do have a question I'm kind of curious about, because I've talked with my stream about it a few times, but the graphical updates were amazing. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. The ships look so good now. Do you guys have a ship that you think is like the most attractive ship at this point? Just
for me, it's the Megatron hull.
Really?
Megatron hull. Yes, I love it. That's my favorite ship.
It was always cool. I remember when I first started, I was like, that has to be the coolest ship in the game, and it's only looked even better and better over the years.
It just looks like a bulldozer, and I have one in my hangar that I dare not undock. Because I just sit and spin it all day.
Yeah, there's for me, I really like the new style Serpentis paint job, like what you see on the Vigilant, what you see on the new Serpentis rookie frigate, the Violator, and those are really gorgeous ships. The black with silver trim, and on the new Vindicator, of course, which is glorious. It's probably going to get some like pockets like hype.
Did you just buy a Megatron?
I may have.
I'll say I'm sure somebody's going to try to psychoanalyze me for this, but the Adrestia is probably just my all-time favorite.
So now I'm going to look up Lost Mails with Adrestias. I know that ship you've been roaming in. I was going to say that earlier. I was like, I bet he's out solo roaming in Adrestias.
Oh, I'm way too scaredy cat to undocking my Adrestia, and if I couldn't even right now because my Adrestia is all locked away on a character that I can no longer access called Ravi.
I actually think it's an interesting point you bring up about the Vindicator, but I really want to start a petition with you guys to just make that thing really ugly, just hideous. Because right now it's way too good looking for the damage it does. It really needs to, it needs to be so visually repulsive that I see less of them, because they're just so strong.
Everything with the Blood Raider skin is also glorious. Like,
yeah, that's true.
All amazing ship. I'm going back to the rookie ships, like the Blood Raider rookie ship. It's just an Imperator, like it's just the Amar rookie ship, but with the Blood Raider skin, and it's amazing looking.
Yeah, it is really cool. I love how they went about that too. Like I don't know, that just seems like one of those ideas somebody would throw out, and the fact that they actually followed through and made him look kind of brutal like that is pretty cool.
And for all the people that have art questions, I just it just clicked in my mind that one of the people that's sitting here in this channel with you is CCP Bunny Virus. So he is someone that is one of our great artists working on all this stuff and makes really cool stuff. I've seen some of his recent work that none of you have seen, and it's really good.
Oh, man, just holding that over us, aren't you?
Yep.
You haven't seen it.
I'm quitting
Are they going
streaming.
to change to Dominic's?
Oh god, the glinty potato.
Think bigger. Think much bigger.
Uh-oh. Oh man, I
don't fly bigger ships than the Dominic's.
I just want to see like super capitals look like giant smiley faces and things like that. Just really unintimidating forms to some of the bigger ships. And all the good ships need to be much less attractive. I want everyone flying stabbers, basically. Alright. Stream chat still going. Uh-oh. Started the Vindy debate here. Oh, Tempest Fleet issue is another favorite. I love that one too. That was one of the first ones I bought after you guys changed the graphics. But
Look at this Bunny Virus blaming the gameplay team for not picking up corp logos on ships. I'm going to officially blame Art for that. Just so there. It's Art's fault.
Corp logos. I had somebody asking a question about that as well. Is there like any plans about making the corp logos a bit bigger and a bit better and a bit more modern? Since I think they didn't change since the start of the game, did they?
I think some new options have been added, but other than that, no. I'm not really sure. That's another one of those ones that Bunnyverse might be able to answer. But I think they'll definitely want to make sure that anything we do, we still allow the old ones to continue to exist in their glory, because some of those are just...
I've clicked on them so often to try and zoom in, but it's not possible.
Yeah, I'm pretty much out of questions, so I can do a very little bit to break the awkward silences, but it's essentially just if you guys have more questions you want to cherry pick out of chat.
Yeah. So we got a question from BD282, adding metadata to ships such as creation date and the person who built it. Problem with that is that every time you repackage a ship, it undoes all of that, and because the way our database works is that gets kind of difficult. So those would disappear very easily if you repackage them, which would be a bit of a bummer. But otherwise, it could be possible.
Yeah. I didn't think about the repackaging thing when I first saw that question. I was like, yeah, that would be really cool. But
the problem is, like,
yeah,
our game has no way of telling apart two repackaged ships. Yeah. Like they're actually just identical objects. There's no distinction between them. And that's why you can't have rigs on them, for instance. Got a question from Liama. Fozzie, will you commentate on the next Alliance tournament? I don't know. It depends kind of on how things go with the decisions there, and
depends on what I say.
Budget. Yeah, on what Bro says. But I'm of the opinion that we should probably get lots of new players in to.
Yeah, I want to shake
to
things
do commentating. Maybe like I can commentate on some stuff, but for the Alliance tournament, I'd rather that be all like non-employee.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there's a lot of talent.
Commentate.
There's a lot of talent out there, and like if you're interested in commentating for the Alliance tournament, then we should probably be setting up the interviews and looking at the candidates soon. But I am definitely more in favor of getting in some fresh blood, since we're going to be losing, Michael Bolton, Ravy, and Kill 2 are all.
Yeah, I mean, if
gone.
we don't get new commentators, where are we going to hire the next generation?
I was thinking the same thing.
To find more people to work for us.
I'm gonna go ahead and vote for Patrick Stewart. Actually, can we like tweet him and see if he's available, or? I feel like
just gonna have Morgan Freeman. We're gonna have Morgan Freeman, and yeah, he's gonna be commentating all the matches.
I feel like they'd be a lot less exciting with him commentating.
Yeah. And the clause asked if Seldrin applies for AT commentator, please tell him off to lay off the terrible puns. And no, if he applies for commentator, we are going to demand that he does nothing but puns all the time.
Oh God.
So yeah, but we will still, you'll probably still see Fozzie and Dolan and Kill 2 commentate on other tournaments if we continue doing those, like the New Eden Open, which was done with in-house commentary. How lucky that we just hired 2 of our AT commentators.
Almost sounds like a plan.
An evil scheme. They want to create a shortage of commentators. Let's see. Yeah, I was actually going to ask about and this is, I know, kind of a complex thing to go about doing, but way down the line, especially with the SEL picking up steam and assuming that that becomes like a serious, sustainable feature of EVE, could we see anything along the lines of other games that sort of have a dedicated replay element to it, where you can sort of first-person it almost, if that makes sense?
Wow, I would like that. It has some logistical problems as far as I know.
Right.
And, but I would definitely like that. And I would, like, for me, I would want more support for player-run tournaments in the game. I would want it to be easy for players to do a tournament without having to do them on the test server or having to bring us in to help them out with them. And like, this is just me thinking out loud here, but I would really want to see players being able to take part. Like, I would want everyone to be able to take part in the tournament style gameplay, because like, I'm pretty sure that Fozzie can back me up on this one. Flying in a tournament setting is probably the most fun PvP experience or one of the most fun PvP experiences you can have in EVE, because it's pretty much it's equal. You have equal numbers, and it's almost all based on pilot skill, especially after we like instituted
it's
the
amazing
bans.
fun.
Yeah. After we instituted the bans and we started to make people like, yeah, all right, so now you're not just going to be coming in completely blind against a perfect counter to your setup. So that is added to the skill level needed, or like the results being a direct result of skill difference. And I think that makes for some really excited matches.
Yeah. Tournaments were one of my favorite things in EVE for years and years. I've always been a huge fan of watching the Alliance tournaments, participating in them. Is some of my favorite moments. I've still got, as the background for my computer, a screenshot of me and my team in the first tournament match I ever flew with a setup that I designed, and just that moment of excitement when you're about to start the match there's nothing quite like it. It's something that I really think that everyone should try out at least once.
I tend to agree. I think to add to that especially is there's this whole sort of obviously psychological warfare element to putting together your comps that I think is your fleet comp. I mean, that I think is amazing. I think some people get even more excited about seeing the metas than they do about the actual fights. But there's a lot of obviously awesome piloting, and I always love the underdog fights, especially in ATX. Some of the fights that were sort of foregone conclusions that turned themselves around was really fun.
Yeah, there was a huge number of these great fights throughout EVE's history. These tournament fights that will be remembered forever, and the ability to be part of those is great. Like, seeing some of the fights that we had in the New Eden Open, seeing some of the fights that we had in the SCL just last weekend, like, it was amazing matches. And in the SCL, we just had what is at least one of the closest matches in tournament history. And it was just a brilliant, hard-fought match. Well, the beginning was a bit slow, but towards the end, it was a brilliant, hard-fought match. And, yeah, being a part of that, I think, is great. I would love to be able to provide more tools for that. It's something that's just a case of design time and development time.
Yeah.
Can't promise anything right now, but it is something that we'd love to be able to support more and more.
Well, it's nice also, I mean, that the SCL, by the time that you guys sort of have the development bandwidth to do that, that you'll have this nice base of data and things built up. So everything will be in full swing. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah. I see in chat people are talking about more game modes and like different tournament modes, and that's a thing that I think is really cool about EVE. If it's growing into, like, if it were to grow into an esport kind of thing and have some esport scene to it, and because the game is not at all structured or built into a certain match-based esports friendly format, if we could implement tools that would allow players to do whatever the hell they wanted and create their own custom game modes, we could track that data and be like, oh, so this 3-on-3 all frigates with all officer mods is the most popular tournament being run in the world, like in New Eden, and we're gonna make our next championship be that game mode. So like we have the freedom to do what the players like the best, instead of being like, oh, so this is how the tournaments are going to be, and they're going to be like this forever.
And people have come up with amazing different formats for how they run tournaments and competitions in EVE. We had the EVE Radio dueling tournament like a week ago yesterday. Where it was just basically a team-based one-on-one tournament with Tech 1 cruisers. The Tuskers have their death race coming up, which is just a full-on PvP, balls-to-the-wall race. And there's been a bunch of these kind of different formats that people have come up with, and we keep looking forward to seeing what people come up with next.
Yeah, I really want to see there was an idea, I think a couple of months back, of EVE style Hunger Games, where you just drop people in some ships, and they have to make their way to a certain point in space, or kill everyone else. And it's just like you have these 10 people just finding each other in space and trying to kill each other off, and picking up things that are jet canned for them along the way by sponsors. And like someone might undock in a good ship and eject from it, and that player would take that ship. And I mean, that would be a really, really cool thing if someone could set that up. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time or bandwidth right now to do that, but that's definitely something I have in the back of my head.
Yeah, I would be all over that, especially if we could ride in the beginning of the competition in dresses that were on fire on chariots. If we could work that out, that would be great.
Yeah.
Gotta have
no
that
problem.
fire.
That's no problem.
Yeah, I've already got the dress. I would just.
You can be the girl on fire. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's gonna be you.
all right. Play that Alicia Keys song in the background. It's all sorted. The timing is perfect. Let's see. All right, I'm just allowing you guys to harvest questions here. A mining tournament.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to see a mining tournament.
It's been done.
Yeah,
it
we
was
did it
done
at
at
FanFest.
FanFest.
Really? What was it?
Yeah.
Like most yield in a given window, or?
It was mining plus PvP. So your goal was to mine as much as possible and get it back to your station, but you could also have the option of shooting the other guy's mining ships to try to disrupt them, or like to steal their ore. And so you had your team, and you could fit out some of them with mining ships and some of them with combat ships, and defend your own guys. And
That's awesome.
it's kind of cool.
I missed out on so much. I don't know how. I must have been sleeping.
It was at a FanFest a couple of years back. I wasn't there, but I heard about it and saw some plays. Last year's FanFest tournament was another kind of different format that a lot of people may not have seen before, which is it's basically a single factional warfare complex, and the teams are teams of 3, and they can just keep reshipping as much as they want from 2 stations that are far away across the system. And so they can fit up all their ships ahead of time, and then as they die, just keep coming back. But your goal is to capture this beacon, that if your team's the only one sitting inside of it, then you slowly capture it and fight back and forth.
I feel
so
like
that was a cool format.
I feel like somebody would breach the rules there and somehow figure out how to log in and knock this alt and just sit out there. I would do that. That's cool though. I love the idea of.
It was really cool watching at the FanFest tournament, so people could warp back and forth. The first team to figure out, hey, do you know what would be really smart? Let's scramble the other team's pods after they die, so they can't go back and reship, and just kind of hold them there.
Yep, that happened.
Nice.
That was a fun tournament, actually. I liked that tournament. I liked that style of gameplay. There were some issues with it, but it was cool. We're gonna be having there's gonna be like another variation this year at FanFest.
I'm looking forward to a FanFest tournament.
So,
as I'm looking forward to everything about FanFest.
Let me ask you, I guess, in the same vein as like the Hunger Games idea, and what I assume SCL was born out of, is EVE has this really cool community that's very active, and they're also like very interested in helping to generate content, which I think is sort of unusual in a game like this. But is that something that maybe there could be, I don't know, like an online think tank on the forums or something, and then people could choose ideas to sort of try and develop and enact and then present back to CCP? Or, I mean, obviously they're not going to be able to structure in-game elements, like automate those sorts of things, but as far as actually feeling out how that would work, it seems like if there was a sort of bank of ideas, there'd be a lot of people that would probably be willing to go in and really think these things through, maybe more than you guys have time to do.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, we've got a section of the forums, in-game events, where a lot of this kind of stuff gets posted. You can make a thread and talk about it, and I'm sure there'll be people willing to provide feedback. You'll get some trolls, but, you know, everyone should learn how to ignore those at some point.
It wouldn't be Eve without it, right?
No, I wouldn't.
But that's cool. We might, my stream might try and adopt the Hunger Games idea, because that sounds epic.
Yeah, definitely. You should try doing that.
I would love doing one. If we ever did one, like I think this is a great idea, like for something for players to do by themselves. If CCP ever does one supported by us, then we should definitely have the rule in place that all the losers have to biomass their characters.
Yep. So you would be, you would just go out there, and as soon as you die, your character is gone.
Oh yeah, high stakes, man. Go big or
You
go
can,
home.
you can. Like, that presents you with a really tough choice. Like, do I bring my main character and try and win this thing, or do I skill up a character over a period of months so it can fly certain things and try and win it with that?
You guys would need to install some serious security measures at your office if you're going to delete somebody's character after an event. You need to pay your security guards more, that's for sure.
Hey, we nerfed heavy missiles. After that, we're not afraid of anything.
Well, that's true. That's true. There was many a Caldari tier. So, all of us flying Mimitar were just chuckling the entire time. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. I keep acting like I have a remaining list of questions, only to realize that I'm completely out. So
SHDA 5582 asked about a ship reconfig thread. I've looked through that. It's something that would be very complicated to code, so I wouldn't say it's something that would be a very strong possibility, but maybe as more of a Tech 3 kind of thing, where you like actually have to dock up and switch it up rather than switching it around kind of on the same ship, but it's actually subsystems, that might work a bit better. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, it was linked in the stream chat. Yeah.
Speaking of, for anybody who doesn't know what he's talking about, just in case anybody tuned in really late, we're talking with CCP Bro and CCP Fozzie about all things Eve and the terrible, terrible things that they'll do to your character in the Hunger Games.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you do the Hunger Games thing, you should try and get as many participants to stream it as possible, so you can be tracking.
I think it would be a prerequisite, honestly. I think it would be.
Yeah, just make all the actual people entering it stream themselves.
I mean, it would honestly even be a good idea now, while the streaming community is small, to take those people who currently stream, get Ryan and Malik and all these people together, and and Karka and myself, and do a Hunger Games with all the current streamers. If we
that would be really cool.
If we could sort out the logistics of that, that would be awesome. Do like an 8-hour marathon Hunger Games stream, or even, I guess, 2 weekends in a row. Although I doubt we'd last that long. We'd all beeline it straight to kill each other, and I'm killing Karka first.
I just knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just bring a Blackbird, I think.
Well, what did you think I was going to be flying? I'm going to take my own Blackbird.
Yeah, you had some success in those Blackbirds.
Yeah, it died today, but that was, you know, that one, it was for the, it was great. Those were to accompany a guy on his birthday roam, and he died, and we just kept going. And he didn't kill anything. He just died instantly, and yet we had fun for the rest of the roam. Oh, Eve.
Yeah, we actually had all those names figured out as well, with Birthday Boy with an arrow to the left and to the right, but he was there for like 3 seconds.
I think also you, Bro, I know you were watching the earlier bits. I think you might want to let Kill2 know that we had some really viable dev names for him. You saw the list earlier.
Yeah, CCP Real Deal. That's one that I have heard him consider.
Yeah.
CCP Real Deal.
We had some that were a bit more on the risque side of things, but they were pretty solid, I think. Fozzie, if you weren't there earlier, our naming theme for all our ships today was CCP dev names that would be rejected by HR. So there was some mildly offensive things going on there, but it was all in good fun.
I will admit, I considered going with CCP Sphere, but decided against it because it would be trolling people a bit too hard.
I was gonna do. I told several people that I was just gonna start calling myself CCP PCP, just so people would get really confused. But I don't think CCP would like that. So if ever I become one, I'm gonna have to do some letter mix-up that nobody will be able to remember. Just make it like 7 letters. They're all random. CC. Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about. I know his Twitter is what, still CCP question mark kill 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing what he comes up with. I thought it would sort of be default he would go kill 2, but I guess not. Probably for good
No,
reason.
I think
Kill 3.
he'll go with something that's not Kill 2. It'll be something different. Kill 2 was never actually like a name that he was too fond of either. He got that character, like that was a
he
character
bought that
bought.
character. Yeah.
Did he
So
really?
he was never fully happy with that.
Well, it's also
Which is actually pretty funny that the name got so attached to him that he's going to be known to a lot of people as Kill 2 forever.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. People in their even names, like he bought his, so he wasn't too happy with it. Ravy is a name that I just basically mashed the keyboard until something that looked reasonable came out, and because I didn't think I was going to play this, I was like, oh, this game looks okay, I guess. Maybe I'll play it for a couple of weeks and whatever. And
You all know how
here I
that
am,
turned out.
6 years later.
Yes.
Almost 7 years later.
Good stuff.
For me, I was always just like, wow, this Eve game looks really interesting, but I never really played it until I started working for CCP.
There are actually people who don't play the game and still get hired by CCP. We don't do commentary on the tournaments and stuff.
Yes. If I did commentary on a tournament at any point, you would just tune out instantly because it would just be like, oh, that ship looks like it's exploding. It's taking some damage. It has some stuff happening to it, and we see some missiles and pretty lights, and oh, there's a laser.
I will say
there's something.
I will say with the SCL, one of my concerns that I'm sure they're working on, because they commented on it and they weren't very happy with it, but the sort of disparity between the audio and the video, that they would call, okay, and that's down 3 or 4 seconds before it actually went. And with some of the like the double Vindy teams and things like that, ships would just melt. So they would call it, and the ship would have no damage yet, and then all of a sudden, like, bam, it was out. So I hope they get that.
Yeah,
sorted.
it's a similar problem to what we faced in the 10th Alliance tournament prelims, when a bunch of the commentators were commentating from home.
Right.
And they basically face the same issue. It's tough to find a way around it. What we just need is a faster speed of light.
There we go. That should be easy
Someone
enough.
should get on that.
Nah, you guys got it.
I'm going to go ahead and commit CCP Veritas.
Yes.
The speed of light any day now.
Yeah.
Any day now.
We'll look for it next Friday, maybe. Get a hot fix.
Yeah,
to allow us to use
that'll be
that.
plenty.
Shouldn't take too long.
Good. Oh, by the way, since bro, I think you mentioned it in passing. I'm not sure. I don't remember at this point if it was joking or not. But the fleet window mechanic. What's up with that?
There were some changes made to it. I linked you the devlog. I know CCP Carker made some changes to the fleet interface.
What are you specifically? It's like there are some changes made in Retribution 1.1. You can now drag people to it. You can now now it sets it to hierarchy as default instead of flat mode because flat mode is stupid.
Right.
Was there anything specific you had questions about?
I guess just sort of moving people around is still a bit tedious in terms of you can't drag and drop in the fleet window itself from squad to squad. And like revoking.
Actually, you should be able to now.
Really?
If you drag and drop, onto onto the name of the squad commander when the squad command is occupied, it should just drop them into that squad if there's room.
I don't know if my stream heard my audible gasp, but this is better than Christmas morning for me. I did not realize that. I don't know why I hadn't tried it. Oh, okay. Never mind. Here I was just gonna like tell you guys to do some work, and turns out I was behind the times.
It's because CCP Carker is awesome, and she puts together a bunch of little things. She's taken on the mantle from CCP Puncturus, who used to be our UI little things person. So she's done a lot of really cool stuff. And I was about to just like talk about a project that I've been working on with her as another UI little thing, but since it's still far enough off, I won't say anything, because if we don't do it, then everyone will rage.
I'm going to sit on Twitter and just keep refreshing and just wait to see that one of you has been terminated for breaching confidentiality. Just gonna wait for it.
Well, this isn't like a confidentiality stuff. It's if for some reason we run into a roadblock, then everyone will get super mad.
Right.
Basically, the same reason that we shouldn't have talked about the modular passes thing before we had an actual full design for the modular passes done, and before we looked at how much it would take to do it all at once, because that caused some problems that you guys may have seen. So we need to do a little bit better at making sure that we can do stuff before we talk about it.
Right. Which I realize, I mean, it sounds like a pretty basic common sense thing, but for you guys who are as involved with the community as you are, I can imagine that's actually pretty tough to do, because you guys like the game as much as we do, and obviously we
especially with a lot of different things. Like, there's a lot of projects that involve so many different groups and that involve so many moving parts that sometimes you get pretty far in it before you realize that it can't be done in that way, or needs to be split up over more releases, or all this kind of stuff, or you need to step back and look at it from a different angle. All of those kind of things can appear somewhat what seems late. So that's always the danger. We always like to talk about cool things, and we're all excited about the stuff we're doing, but sometimes we just have to be chill.
Right. Well, I'm going to stage a protest now if the Hunger Games doesn't happen by the end of 2013, so just be prepared.
I'm sure there will at least be a movie.
Well, I will literally buy people tickets to Iceland so we can picket the office if I win the lottery. So, if you walked outside and saw a picket line,
you win the lottery.
Well, it might happen.
I really hope you win the lottery now, because that would be hilarious.
Of all the petty things to spend money on, I feel like picketing your all's office would be one of my top choices. Charity comes second, picketing CCP number 1 on my list.
You can always just come to FanFest and bug us there.
Well, but that's a lot lackluster. The shock factor is much lower. Yeah, that's it. So, are you guys going to stick around for a little bit longer? Or you want to sort of close it out, or it's completely up to you guys?
I have really no preference. I'm just since we're running pretty much out of questions, I guess you might want to go roaming or stuff, or do something else. I don't know.
Yeah, there's one more question from the stream that I'll just grab quickly.
Sure.
About station games. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with station games. Kind of, if I had my way, I'd just make every station a kick out and say, go nuts. But unfortunately, I don't get my way all the time. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we'd like to do. Ideally, I think the greatest thing would be if we could give people a way to see the overview from inside the station, and then just not let you redock within a period of time, maybe based on the size of the ship or something, to completely end it once and for all. But I can't say for sure when we might be able to do something like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff just appeared there. Any chance the target lock icons could be image oriented to the actual target? Not entirely sure what that means. Like, maybe making it like a picture-in-picture is something that CCP Arrow really wants to do, and he's got a gigantic excitement about that. But I don't know. Technically, we've run into some roadblocks with his plans in that direction. What plans CCP have for the next tournament stream partner, bro? You want to? I can tell you, it's probably not going to be Own 3D.
It's not going to be Own 3D. They're gone, unfortunately. Yeah. Like I said in chat, we will be announcing streaming stuff at FanFest. Then you'll get a much clearer picture of where we're heading in that regard. So keep your eyes and ears open during FanFest, and all your questions will be answered.
Question about Tech 3 subsystem refitting. Yes, there's stuff that we want to do in that regard. There's some technical limitations. We can't let you just switch your subsystems while you're in space, because the system that actually changes the way Tech 3s look will just have a giant hissy fit and fail. But there's ways around it, and we're kind of working on that. I can't make promises about exactly when, but this is a project that we are part way through a solution to. A station trading and market bots question. Market bots do exist. If you see them, report them, and that helps us catch them. We're catching them as fast as we can, and
yeah, we're actively fighting the market bots and all bots. So yeah, will you do more question and answers in the future? That's actually a really good question. I would love to hear you your feedback on how this session went, and if people liked it and if it was informative, and then definitely look into doing more of this in the future with people that have some other specialities. Whether or not it will be through a player stream or through a like specific CCP channel is something that has yet to be determined, but definitely something to look into, because I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope everyone else had fun and found this informative. And if you haven't already, guys, you should really follow Sir Squeebles here on Twitch.
Aww.
So you can tune into his stream when he goes live.
See, the problem with that is I had already ordered 100 Team CCP Fozzie t-shirts, and now I gotta call and order at least a few Team CCP Bro t-shirts. Damn. Well, it's worth the money, but I appreciate but yeah, obviously, I mean, the biggest endorsement was you guys coming on and chatting with us. I know I've learned a lot that I sort of expected to just be a moderator, but a lot of those questions I was really interested in having answered. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. Not just for me, but, I mean, for the community as a whole. It's been really cool to see. Bro, you've been really involved, and it's cool to see that there's possibly more of that on the horizon.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Definitely. Community involvement is my passion pretty much, and I want to move us towards being like, we have this unique opportunity where our game and our community isn't too big that we can actually get up close and personal with our players and not leave a vast majority of them out. We can be open and personal with people, and I think we need to do more of that. And also, it's a fun process for everyone involved. I mean, we get I know probably Fozzie is going to be, so it's going to take all these questions, and now he knows better where the concerns of the community lie, and this just adds on top of the feedback that he's getting from the features and ideas discussion forum. And the same thing for me. I know a lot more about where people's hearts are at when it comes to streaming and tournaments than I did before I did this. So I think this is just beneficial for everyone, and definitely something that I'll look to push to do again in the future.
Yeah, stuff like this is great. I love going, like, this is the first stream that I've done a Q&A on, but like on podcasts, on different player events. If you've got an Eve meet that you organize in any way, anyone listening to this, and you'd like to have some devs come and Skype in and answer some questions to that, we've been trying to do that as much as possible. So in that case, contact the community guys through a petition to the community queue, and they'll see what they can do. Obviously, schedules permitting. If you want to meet some devs, we're going to have a big meet at PAX East. I know there's going to be a bunch of devs going to Boston to check that stuff out. So at the end of this month, there's going to be a bunch of devs heading there. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be one of them, but there will still be some really cool people. So yeah, if you want to talk to devs, there's plenty of ways to do it.
Yeah, neither of us. So you can just not go.
Yeah, we all want to go to Fan Fest.
I would also just like to say before, I mean, while Bro, you're on, who's you've, for my money, have been like the patron saint of my stream from CCP so far, by helping set this up and everything. And a lot of people have asked me, like, you've been around, I'm sure, for a few moments where people say, "Oh, why would you live stream? Why would you live stream?" And this is exactly why I live stream. I think it gives you guys, like, what you all are able to do right now with all these stream viewers, I get to do all the time, and it's amazing to get live questions and live feedback, except for when they tell you you're dumb for not turning your invuln on. That's a bit of a problem, but
you are, if you don't turn it on.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
What your most expensive ship is?
Yeah, they always ask me my most expensive ship, how long I've been playing, and they tell me to turn my damage control on typically. But yeah, I think it's an awesome resource, and I don't know how many other streamers are doing the live streaming thing, but Q&As like this are awesome, and I appreciate it being here, but it's even cool to see it elsewhere. I don't get stream envy, so hopefully it's something the streaming community can sort of participate in more fully, and not just a couple of us.
Definitely.
But that's pretty much it from my end. I think I actually am going to lead a roam. I'm not trying to give you guys the boot, but I think you guys have covered a ton of stuff, and we've taken a good bit of your time. Hopefully you enjoyed yourselves. I know, for my part, I did. But that's basically it. CCP Bros, CCP Fozzie, Karka. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking to us, and looking forward to hearing more from you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was great.
Thanks a lot for joining.
Well, I'll see you guys later, and yeah, good luck with the roaming.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Boom. Q&A done.